Hi there, Cathi from Software Solutions. I want to have a look at Microsoft Project for the Web. What is Microsoft Project for the Web? Well, it's a product from Microsoft that sort of sits between Planner, which is a simple project management tool that's typically used by individuals, and it sits between Planner and Microsoft Online for Desktop, which is sort of like a complex project management tool used by project managers and project management teams. In between those Microsoft Planner and Microsoft Project Online for Desktop, you've got this application. It's cloud-based. It's part of your Office 365 sort of suite. And it's Microsoft Project for Web, or P4W, you often see as its abbreviated form. Now, Microsoft Project for the Web is, I think, quite reasonable. It's a reasonable medium-term project management tool, and it's part of the Microsoft Project suite. So you've got Planner, you've got Project for the Web, and then you've got Project Online, and then you've got Project Online for Desktop. I think Project Online is going to get engulfed by Project for the Web. So this program is picking up speed and getting more powerful. So I think it's really going to carve itself a place because it's cloud-based and because of its good integration with other programs like Microsoft Teams. So let's have a look at Microsoft Project for the Web. Basically, through your browser, you would go into your app launcher. And in your app launcher, you would fire up Project. And if you didn't see it immediately listed here, you would explore all your apps until you brought up Project, and this is what you'd see. If you want to create a new project, pretty straightforward, this button here. Click this button here and you've got a number of templates. So if you're wanting a partially constructed commercial construction project plan or marketing campaign project plan, then there are templates which are partially constructed. But I want to create a project plan that's bespoke and unique, and so I want to start with a blank project. And this is what I'm doing here. Now in the top left hand corner I can see Untitled Project, and I can click there and I can give this project a name. I can also achieve that by going through these three dots here and going into Project Details. I'm just going to click the name because I think it's more immediate. Now here I like to name my projects after the jobs that they are. So I'm going to call it Job. Now, Job 445566. I am the project manager, so you can see that listed here, and I'd like to start that, say, in the next Monday, which is the 17th of July. And that's all I'm going to put in there for now. So I just hit the X and I close that. So if I want to go back, I simply click this and I can update the project name. I can change the start date, or I can even go to here and even delete the project because I no longer want it. But I'm just going to close the project details pane. Now, having created this new project, if you want to return to the project homepage, that's what this button's about, this little button that looks like a house. If you hit the home button, you will return to the project homepage where you could start another new project. Now, under Recent, I can also see my project sitting here that I've recently created. If I was to click the star here, I would be marking this project as a favorite, and it would go up to the top here and join my other favorites that I've got listed here. I could also go to this button here, which is More Options, and using the More Options, I could create a link to the project that I could share with people. I could add it to my favorites by choosing the second option. I could also copy the project if I wanted to create a new project that was basically the same as this project. I could rename the project if I felt that the job number that I had used was incorrect, and I can even export this project to Excel or remove it from this list. So there's a few options that are appearing to the right of the name of the project when you're in the project homepage. But if I click on the project, I'll actually return to the actual project at hand. Now what I'd like to do is I'd like to add some tasks to my project, and that's what this button is all about here. I've got 4 main tasks about this project, so I'm going to click on here and I'm going to say that we need to paint a house. So this particular job is about residential maintenance. It's a residential maintenance contract. So we're going to paint a house. We're then going to proceed to do some landscaping. So all I did is press enter. When I press enter again, I can say that the third main task is to build a fence. And when I press enter again, the fourth main task of this project is to build a shed. So 4 main tasks in this project. Now, I'm going to use my arrow keys to go up to the top here. So when you want to move up and down, I find the easiest way and the quickest way is just to use the arrow keys on your keyboard. Now I want to insert a task. Now when it comes to inserting a task, you could press Alt-M, or you could actually click this button called More Options, and you could insert a task above. But I find the easiest way to insert a task is actually to just hit the Insert key. So I'll press the Insert key on my keyboard, and I'm going to insert the task project summary at the very top. So now I have 5, as you can see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tasks listed in my project plan. Now another way to insert a task is just to put your mouse here and to click on this plus. This plus, if I click it, will actually insert a task as well. Now if I want to delete this untitled task, I'll simply go for my options here and I'll simply delete the task. So it's easy enough to insert a task and easy enough to delete a task. Now some of these tasks are main tasks and some of them are subtasks, so we need to be able to indent the subtasks. I'm using my arrow key to place myself on Paint House. I will then hold the Shift key and press the down arrow, and that will allow me to select these 4 tasks. You could drag with your mouse, like you could just go like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, but if you want to use the keyboard, position yourself on the first task, hold the Shift key and hit the down arrow, and you've chosen those 4 tasks. Now to turn them into subtasks, I would simply hit my More Options button, and I would simply choose to indent these tasks or make them a subtask. By making them a subtask, they are indented now, and the project summary task has gone bold and has acquired a chevron in the front of it, which means you can collapse the project summary task, and then if you hit this symbol again, you can expand the project summary task. So by indenting tasks or making them subtasks, you are able to then collapse and expand the amount of detail you wish to view in your project. I'm now going to insert some more tasks, some more subtasks, and proceed to indent them. Under Paint House, I'm going to insert Draw Up Plan. And you may want to join me. Press Enter, press Insert, and Procurement. Press Enter, press Insert, and Delivery. So there are 3 things that I need to do with regards to painting the house and the planning of that. So I'm now going to actually select these 3, and I'm going to, now you could hit the More Options button as we did earlier, but if you want a shortcut key, Alt-Shift right arrow. Alt-Shift right arrow indents and Alt-Shift left arrow outdents. So I'm going to indent those 3 tasks. Now under Delivery, I want to insert internal. We're going to paint the internal part of this house, which includes the walls. Enter, insert, doors, enter, insert, and trim. I then want to indent those 3, so I select the 3 of them and Alt-Shift right arrow. But we're also going to insert external. I want to paint not only the internal part of the house, but the external part of the house. External, though, should be on the same level as internal. So I'm going to go Alt-Shift left arrow and outdent it, or if I was to use my More Options, you can promote the subtask or demote the subtask using these 2 options. And notice it even mentions Shift Alt left arrow, Shift Alt right arrow. So I'm just going to use my Alt-Shift left arrow to put that back. Now under external, I want to paint the north, the south, the south, the east, and the west side of the house. And those 4 need to be indented under external. Once that's done, I need to insert that we're also going to paint the roof. So I insert that, and then I'm going to insert that the paint is then complete once they're all done. And I'll outdent paint complete, so it needs to go back a level. So I've got a total here of 19 tasks. I've been using my insert key to insert them, and I've been using my Alt-Shift left arrow and Alt-Shift right arrow to promote them or to turn them into subtasks. Now it's easy enough, as I mentioned earlier, to delete a task should you need to. Click on the task, simply hit the more options and simply delete the task. But the other thing we can do is we can rearrange tasks. So if I need a procurement to be above draw up plan, I would simply go to the very left in front of the row number and I would simply drag this task up if I wanted to put it above draw up plan, or I would drag it below if I wanted to put it under draw up plan. So you can easily move a task, rearrange tasks just by dragging up and down using this little symbol here, or you can easily delete or insert tasks. Now the other thing you can do is easily copy and paste tasks. Now let's get down to walls. I'm going to insert that we need to prep, insert, we need to paint, insert, and we need to tidy. And those three tasks will be indented. Now we also need to prep, paint and tidy the doors. So I just want to copy and paste those three tasks under doors and under trim to save me typing. With those three tasks selected, I can actually take a copy of these tasks, or I could use Control C. If I then right click trim, I could paste the tasks. And so it's pasted them underneath doors. Hasn't indented them, but you don't get everything. If I right click external and I paste task again, it'll put them under trim as well as under doors. So the ones under doors, I just simply need to indent them, and the ones under trim that I pasted, I need to indent them. So you can copy and paste as well. So I think that's our rows pretty much sussed for the moment. Let's have a look at the columns. We have a number of columns: name, which is the name of the task; quick look, which actually is going to indicate if there's any notes or attachments to a task, which we'll look at later; assign to, when we assign a person to a task; and the duration of a task. What we can do is we can move these columns. If I grab the duration column by clicking its heading, I can drag it and just move it to the left and put it in front of quick look, or drag it to the right and put it to the right of assign to. So you can move your columns simply by dragging. You can also adjust the width of columns just by grabbing the line between any two column headings and increasing or decreasing the width of a column. To get rid of this wiggle, I'll just press escape and that gets rid of that. And what I might do is hide some of these columns for now. So I'm going to click on quick look and hide that column. Click on assign to and hide that column. Now I also have the ability to add columns, and one of the things we like to add to projects is what we call the work breakdown structure, or the WBS code. I'm going to add a column, and in here, if we have a look, we'll see there's a number of columns that you can add, and one of them is called outline number. So I'm going to choose outline number. This is also known as the WBS, or work breakdown structure code. I might put that, if I drag it, in front of the task name. And so now I can clearly check whether my indentation is correct. Project summary is number 1, paint house is 1.1, and so on and so forth. I see that I've got a total of 28 tasks or rows, and I can clearly see where they fit or sit in the indent structure. Now let's have a look at duration. Duration is how much time you're setting aside for a task to be completed, not necessarily how long it takes for a task to be done. So when it comes to a duration, the types of units you can use are minutes, hours, days, weeks, and months. So to draw up a plan, I might say it's 15 minutes, and I would just put 15M. Or I could change that and say, no, it's 15H for 15 hours. And if I go 15D, that's allowing 15 days, and 15W would allow 15 weeks, and 15MO would allow 15 months. So you've got a variety of units that you can use. What you don't want to do is enter durations for the summary task, that is the bold ones. The duration for the summary task will be derived by its subtask once you complete its subtask. It'll be derived by the earliest start and the latest finish, or the duration, therefore, of each of these subtasks. So don't enter durations for these bold ones. Okay. The durations I'd like to enter, draw up plan, for example, I would like to make that 2 days. And for procurement, I'm going to allow 5 days. Now, if I just put 5, it'll default to days. Now, delivery is what we call a milestone. So I'm just going to enter 0 as a milestone. So any significant dates like delivery dates, sign-off dates, code of compliance dates, due dates, those are what we call milestones, and you make them 0 duration. Now, as far as prepping the walls, 14 days, painting the walls, 10 days, and actually prepping 1 day. As far as prepping the doors, that's a little bit trickier, so we'll go 16 days, 14 days to paint, and 2 days to tidy up. As far as the trim goes, that's quite easy, so 1 day to prep, 1 day to paint, and 2 hours, 2H, to tidy. Painting the north side of the house will take 10 days. In fact, painting all the sides of the houses will take 10 days, and the roof will also take 10 days. Paint complete is a milestone, so we're going to put a 0 for there. 21 days are allowed for landscaping. We're going to allow 14 days for building the fence and 21 days for actually building the shed. So those are our durations. We simply go down. Notice we didn't enter any durations for the actual summary task. So the project as a whole is taking 21 days. This is calculated by these particular durations. Painting the house takes 16 days internally and externally, and landscaping, etc., all have their durations as well. So enter the durations in the duration column. To actually see your project as a Gantt chart, we have a view up the top here other than grid called timeline. Click timeline. When you click timeline, you can now see your tasks are listed all down the left hand side, all 28 of them, and there's a red line here which represents today, and your milestones such as delivery and paint complete appear as diamonds, and if I rest on the diamond I can see up in the time scale that this milestone is for the 17th of July, and if I rest on this task it's going from the 17th to the 29th of July. So as you rest on a task you can actually see the start and finish date up in the top time scale. You also have a zoom control, so you can zoom down to see more on your screen. Just by sliding it up and sliding it down, you can actually increase or decrease the magnification of your timeline. Those tasks that appear as a rectangle bar, they are subtasks. Those that are a diamond are milestones, and those that look like this are summary tasks. And this particular summary task is the start and the finish of the entire project. Let's now create some dependencies between these tasks, because as it sits at the moment, everything is starting on Monday the 17th of July. What I'd like to do is create a dependency between these two tasks. Now as I rest on Draw Up Plan, and particularly to the right of it, notice this circle with a filled in circle inside of it. Drag this circle at the end of this task to the beginning of this task to create a dependency between these two tasks. And you really have to see the circle appear in both of them for it actually to connect, as you can see there. I'll grab this circle, drop it on this circle, and when I see them both filled in, I can let go, and I've created a dependency between these tasks. I'm going to proceed to link this to this. I need to see that circle. There we go. And this one to this one. And continue. And these types of dependencies are what we call finish start dependencies. That is when the predecessor finishes, the successor, the next task, will start. Now I need to zoom down for this next one. Oops, too far. About there, just so I can easily see this circle and this circle. Now landscaping, I'm going to link to build fence, and I'm going to link that to build shed. So I've created some of my dependencies. To delete a dependency, perhaps between these two tasks here, I'll simply switch back to my grid. And if I actually look at my paint complete, which is here, I can then add a column, and that column would be called dependence on. Here you see that there is a finish-start relationship between these tasks. For example, when row 24 finishes the predecessor for Paint Complete, then Paint Complete will start. If I want to get rid of that link, I will simply click on it and simply backspace, and the link will disappear between those two tasks. If I go back to my timeline, I can see now that there is no link between this task and Paint Complete anymore because I got rid of the dependency in the grid view. Certain tasks are actually going to affect more than one task. For example, the delivery of the materials to paint the house is going to affect the start of the internal painting and the external painting of the house. So what I'm going to do here is collapse internal so I can see both the internal and the external subtasks. I'm going to get the circle on the end of this milestone and drag it to the beginning of internal. I'm also going to grab that circle and drag it to the beginning of external. So now when I expand internal, I can see that the delivery of the paint house order is going to affect the start date of not only painting the internal part of the house, but is also going to affect the painting of the external part of the house. Now, due to resourcing, I'm actually going to create a link between the walls and the doors. So when we're finished painting the walls, we'll then paint the doors, and when we're finished painting the doors, we'll then paint the trim. So that immediately starts forcing the start dates of some of these tasks to move out. Now, the paint complete is determined by a number of factors. Whether the paint is complete is determined by whether the internal painting is finished and the external painting is finished. So again, I'm going to grab the end of the external and drag it to the Paint Complete milestone. So now the Paint Complete is determined by finishing the external part of the house. But if I collapse internal, the Paint Complete is also affected by the end of the internal painting of the house. So I'm going to drag this and also drop it onto that milestone. So now both of these tasks have to be complete in order for the paint complete to have been completed. And that's my dependencies created in my timeline view, which I'm happy with. And if I go back to my grid view, I can actually see those dependencies listed in the depends on column. I can see paint complete depends on the completion of rows 19 and row 6. Row 6 being the internal painting and row 19 being the external painting. And I can expand internal just so I see all my tasks. So that's our depends on column. In addition to your depends on column, you may also add the depends after column. The depends after column shows you what comes after that particular task. So, for example, after row 16 is completed, row 17 will start. So the 17 is almost like, the depends after is almost like the successor, and the depends on is the predecessor. So those two columns can be quite handy for you to see and to manage your dependencies. Now, there are actually 4 types of dependencies you can use in your project. The finish start, or the FS, is the most common type of dependency. When the predecessor finishes, the successor starts. But there may be certain tasks that can start at the same time. For example, the painting of the north, south, east, west and roof can all happen at the same time. If I want to change the finish start that exists between north and south, I'll click on the 20fs. If I double click it, it starts to make some suggestions, but I don't want those. So I'm going to backspace the 20fs. I'm going to put 20, and then I have the option to choose finish start, finish finish, start start, or start finish. If I choose finish start, then when row 20 finishes, row 21 will start. If I choose finish finish, row 21 will finish at the same time as row 20. And if I choose start start, then row 21 will start at the same time as row 20. And if I choose a start to finish, then row 21 must finish before row 20 can start. So there's different types of relationships. And you can see the 2 letters here. I'm going to choose a start. And let's have a look at the timeline. So if I go to the timeline and I scroll down, I can see these are both now starting at the same time. If I go back to the grid and I change this 21 FS, I'm just going to click it. F2 is edit, the function key. I'll backspace, I'll type 21 and I'll just type SS. Or choose this and choose start. Click it. 22 SS. Oops. Backspace it. 22 SS. If it can't find it, 22 and choose the SS from the drop down. If I then change this here, backspace, 23 SS. No, I've got to choose it from the list. Start. If I then go and look at my timeline, I can see now as I scroll down that these are all starting at the same time. Something that we're used to with other project management programs is inserting a lead. Now, a lead is an overlap. You may have 2 tasks that can't strictly start at the same time, but there's no need also to wait for the completion of the first task before the second task starts. You can start the second task partway through the completion of the first task. Unfortunately, in Project for the Web at this point in time, there is no lead. So I guess the best way to create a lead is actually to break the link between the 2 tasks. And that way, the second task won't wait for the finish of the first task. You can just make it start partway through. So for example, I'd go to the grid, I'd go to procurement, I'd actually delete, so I'm just going to click in here and backspace, delete the link between procurement and draw up plan. I'd go to the timeline, and here, if I zoom in a little bit, drag it. And so instead of actually creating a link which is going to force this one to start when the other one's finished, you could just drag it and just say, I want you to create an overlap or a lead. So just simply remove the link. When it comes to a lag, though, you can implement a lag into Project for the Web. And this would simply be just a matter of dragging this task out to a certain position. So for example, if I want to create a gap and allow, say, 5 days for delivery, I'd simply drag this out to here, and that would create a delay or a lag between these 2 tasks. And that would then affect all the other tasks that were waiting for the delivery of the materials in order to do the painting of the internal and external part of the house. So a lag is quite easy, just drag, but a lead, break the link and then overlap the tasks manually just by dragging them. What we'd now like to do is start assigning people to tasks, and for this I'm going to go back to the grid view. I'm going to add a column and it's simply called Assign To. Now, when I go to assign somebody, nothing's coming up. And that is because I haven't actually assigned this project to any group members. And that's what this button in the top right corner is doing. Click on Group Members, and here is the job that we're looking at, 445566. And what we can do is we can create a group by simply adding certain people using this option here. Or if you actually have an Office 365 group already in place that you would like to assign to this group, then you can choose Add to Group. So I already have a group of people. They are my document management group. So I'm going to go into here, for example, and my document management group, or I've got a number of groups here. So I'm going to choose that group there. And when I choose Add, all the members of that group will then become available to assign to tasks. And I can see there are 6 members of that group now appearing in the top right corner. So when it comes to drawing up the plan, for example, I might click here, hit this little Assign to Task button, and I'm going to assign myself. And again, I'll assign myself to the 3 sort of preparation tasks. But when it comes to actually the prep, then I want to assign SSPC2. And so you simply go down assigning people to the various tasks. If I need to assign 2 people, I go back in again and I choose a second person. Sometimes assigning people to the task can be done in some of the other views more quickly. For example, I might decide that I want to go to the board. And if I go to the board, I can see that I've got a number of buckets in here and a number of people. But instead of grouping by bucket, I might group by assigned to. And here I can see all the tasks that are unassigned, and currently I've assigned tasks to 3 people. But if I actually need to assign, for example, all the painting jobs to these 2 people, then I could grab, for example, East and drop it into SSPC2's bucket. I could grab North and drop it in here, South, drop it there, West and drop it there. And so I've actually dropped it into their bucket. If I then go back to the grid, I will see that that person has been assigned to all of these. And if I want to, I can then assign a second person to those tasks as well. Another view that's quite helpful is a view called People. When I go into the People view, I can actually see myself and the various people that I've assigned to tasks. I can see if there's any unassigned tasks, which there aren't. And if I want to zoom out or zoom in, hold the control key and use your mouse wheel and pull it towards you. If you hold the control and bring your mouse wheel towards you, you'll zoom and see more on your screen. If you move your mouse wheel forward, you'll zoom in, and if you move your mouse wheel backwards, you'll zoom out. So the people view is quite good for seeing the various people in this project and how many tasks they've got assigned to them, how many are incomplete and how many are late. We haven't started this project at the moment, so they're all incomplete and 0 are late. That's the people view. Now let's bring effort into the picture. If we go to the grid, what we can do is add another column, and this column is called effort. And let me hold the control key and just zoom in a little bit so you can see more clearly. This is the number of hours that each person is going to be putting towards each task. Because I assigned Cathi to draw up plan for 2 days, and Cathi works an 8-hour day according to Outlook and her calendar settings, it is assumed that she will work for 16 hours on drawing up the plan. If it's not the case and she's only to spend 10 hours, you can click that initial value and change it to 10. The procurement, I might be working for that on that. I may be allowed 5 days to work on that, but I'm not working 5 days full time on it. I may only work 20 hours on it over 5 days. So you can now control the effort that each person is putting towards each of these tasks by editing the effort column. Some other columns relating to effort that you might want to add are effort completed. So as they start working on these projects, we're going to say how many hours they've actually completed as to how many hours we actually assigned. And you can also add another column, which is effort remaining. So if we, for example, assign 10 hours and I come in here and say that she's done 2 hours, then the remaining hours will become 8. So those are helpful columns as well. Another column that's quite useful is priority. I'm going to add the column to the grid view called priority. And by default, all of the priorities are set to medium. But I may actually say that drawing up the plan has now become urgent. And also the procurement has become important. And so you can actually change, and the delivery is important as well. You can change the priority for these tasks from medium to low, medium, important or urgent. Another column that people find useful is the labels column. If in the grid view we add column, we can add labels. Now what labels are a colour and a word that groups things that have something in common. It might be that they have certain requirements or a certain location or anything that's in common. So for example, if I double click this labels option here, you can see these labels, these generic labels just listed, and they appear as color. So if I want to identify that certain tasks are management related, I'm going to edit this label by clicking this button here, and I'm going to call it management. And enter. So now that's the management label, and if I click that, I've assigned that label to that task. And you can assign more than one label, But if I actually go to here now, let me just widen that a little bit. There. If I go to here now, I can choose management, and if I go here, I can choose management again. So labels are something that you can assign to various tasks. So I might go here, for example, and I'll double click and I'll choose blue and I'll edit that and say these are the painters. And so I've assigned that label, painters, to that particular task. Sometimes it's easier to go into the task information, click here and go into the information panel, open details, and if I scroll across a little bit, you can actually assign, click on paint, assign a label using this option here, and it may be quicker to go to a task and add the label to the task by using the details pane. Again, it may be quicker to go to the board view and change the grouping from assigned to labels, and then you can actually start continuing to add things to certain labels. So anything paint related like east and north are going to be added to the painters label. And so we've assigned labels to all of our tasks. And I can see those labels, like we mentioned, actually in. I'll just control wheel to zoom in. So we can now go to board view and we can see our information by labels, or we can see it by assigned to, or we can see it by other things such as priority, which we added earlier, whether it's urgent, important, or medium priority.